Okay, denial of service. We'll talk about DOS attacks, right, and DDoS attacks. What some of the tools are. What's a bot? What's bot stand for? What's it short for? Robot, right? There's other names for bots. People call them drones or zombies. I particularly like zombies, especially around Halloween time. And you'll see other names as well. What's a DDoS? Distributed, right? Often botnets. We'll look at some different types of DDoS attacks. Then we'll talk about worms, reflected DOS, and countermeasures, right? So Fred Schneider is one of the original people who talked about cyber war. So you wanted to launch an attack, it would not be too difficult. We've had a lot of major incidents over the internet involving mass amounts of malware and worms, right? So January 2001, somebody targeted register.com. Register.com is what? DNS register, right? The attack forged requests for the MX records for AOL.com. They used the DNS server to amplify the attack. That caused that person's server to go out and make DNS requests, right? Used lists of tens of thousands of DNS records that were over a year old. You can pummel DNS servers into, complete CPU boundness by just throwing lots and lots and lots of DNS queries to them. Because they're single-threaded, they don't usually run in a massively parallel environment. Everybody's using the same DNS server. They're sending requests to it. You can just make them and keep them busy. In July 2002, the HoneyNet project analyzed what turned out to be yet another DDoS agent, which implemented several DNS-related attacks. See a theme here? People are attacking DNS, right? People have attacked the backbone servers, the root name servers before, trying to disrupt service. At one point, they actually shut down 9 of the 13 root servers or drastically impaired them. When the Kaminsky attack came out, people were afraid once again people were going to do internet-wide DNS attacks. In February 2007, does everybody know what a massively multiplayer role-playing game is? An MMP org and various things. So there are these games where people go on and they do various game playing and things like that with thousands of other users online. The servers have to be able to handle a massive number of network connections and users, etc. So some people who get upset, they try to disrupt these. Some of these are games like Halo, Castle Wolfenstein, Counter-Strike, and many others. These were disrupted by a Russian group from Russia, Uzbekistan, and Belarus. January 2008, a group known as Anonymous began an attack on Scientology websites. They were doing this as a protest against Scientology, going after and suing people that posted material about Scientology up on the internet. Right? Then we start to see some cyber war between countries or different groups. Right? Kyrgyzstan knocked offline because of the Russians. You also see that because of Georgia. Remember, Georgia and Russia were involved in a little dispute? There was also an attack on Estonia. So regular DOS attack is pretty straightforward, right? One site decides to interrupt or disrupt another site, right? They can do that by throwing packets at them. They can spoof the packets. You can do it just based on quantity, or you can be much more intelligent about it and try to, trigger bad behavior based on your knowledge of the protocol or flaws within the application, right? So if you know about vulnerabilities, the best thing is to go after those. You can be much more intelligent and cause a lot more disruption. In modern warfare, we call these kind of things asymmetric attacks. What does asymmetric warfare allow you to do? Allows David to go after Goliath, right? You can have just a few people, a small tight group of terrorists can go after a nation state, right? Just using a few speedboats and some explosives, maybe. Right? These are examples you can do over the internet, right? Send people the ping of death and cause them to crash their server. Send them SYN floods, and if they're susceptible to them, then nobody else can go and connect to their site and retrieve web pages, right? Because you're holding them in thrall, you're holding them bound to your SYN flood, or other types of malformed packet attacks. Just some of the different types of attacks, making them waste CPU time, right? Bandwidth, disk space, etc. Sending them loads and loads of bogus DNS requests just to make them chew up time and not respond to everybody else's DNS requests. If people can't make timely requests to DNS servers and get back responses, what happens? They can't look up websites in your domain, right? DNS is really the linchpin or the glue. Disrupt your configuration, such as routing tables, right? Either reroute people or route people to dead ends so they still can't get to your website. Disrupt TCP sessions. If I can disrupt people's TCP sessions by sending them resets, I can make them tear down their session. Let's say they're doing streaming or they're retrieving web pages and I continue to send them spoofed reset packets. All of a sudden, they'll just tear down their TCP connections. They'll never get the information. We can also try to disrupt the physical network or obstruct the communications media, right? What's one example of disrupting a transport media, a networking media? And wireless is susceptible to this, right? What do you want to do if people are communicating wirelessly and you want to disrupt them? There are these things called Wi-Fi jammers, right? They're illegal, but you can get them. And all you have to do is put the appropriate signal out on what frequency. It's a fairly narrow band around 24 gigahertz, right? And you can cause all the wireless in that area to come down. There are even cell phone jammers. They're also illegal in this country. The FCC will come after you if you start one up.
There's a lot of legal devices that can work in that space that just is able to work in that.
2.4 gigahertz is very susceptible to noise, electrical noise. Microwave ovens, other things can all generate signals in the 2.4 gigahertz range. So it's quite easy to jam Wi-Fi, just by turning on a microwave in some cases. Or you can use one of those, cordless phone sets that sends traffic on 2.4 gigahertz. Right? Smurfing we've talked about before, uses ICMP, sends it to the directed broadcast address at a site that's vulnerable to it. You spoof the packets from the site you want to be the victim so that when they amplify the attack and they send you back a multiplier effect of packets, sometimes 10, sometimes 200 times the number of packets you originally sent when you were pinging the broadcast address, all of a sudden this poor victim site gets flooded over the internet by an innocent third party, right? So you're using that victim as a bounce site to go and attack other victims out there. Very similar to ping flooding and UDP flooding, but it does this multiplicative effect, right? Here's what it looks like. I spoof a broadcast address from some target here, right? I send it to the intermediary. I send it to their broadcast address. All these machines respond to it, right? Because they all get the broadcast packet and request. And so they all send an ICMP echo reply to the target. So it starts getting flooded with packets. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm undetectable. Why? I'm out on the internet somewhere spoofing packets from another IP address.